So now from one weighty topic to another, let's go into the end, perhaps, of MCNs as we know them. Now, an MCN, if you don't know, is a multi-channel network, and they are these entities that exist in YouTube that began at a time when YouTube was still growing and they needed a way to more efficiently handle all of these little creators looking to make money on the YouTube platform. Rather than manage all of these channels themselves, YouTube allowed the creation of these entities to create networks of creators that could then bring those people in, monetize them, and also basically babysit their behavior so YouTube could focus on building their core business at that point in time. Now, things have changed significantly. YouTube provides a lot of the services that these MCNs used to provide, so I'm not part of an MCN, nor will I ever be, I believe, as time goes on here. And it really hasn't made sense for a lot of people like me moving forward to be part of them, but there was a time when they were very relevant, and some of them actually got to be very large. Maker Studios is a great example. This was a studio that grew out of one of these MCN things and eventually got bought out by Disney for a good amount of money and then was dismantled by Disney when they figured there was no more money left in it. But needless to say, they have grown quite a bit. There are many out there. Some are okay. Some are really bad and exploit small creators. And a bulk of the offers that I have had from MCNs have been of the exploitive nature. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But what happened? Well, Social Blade, which is a great website that I suggest you check out for tracking your own YouTube stats and those of others, apparently also has a small MCN. And I want to add everything bad I'm about to say about MCNs. I don't want to apply to Social Blade because I don't really have any experience with their MCN, so I don't know whether they're good or bad or indifferent, but know that I'm not singling them out here in this discussion. I'm just putting them on screen because they're the only group that I saw speaking publicly about this. And I think it's important to begin our discussion here. So Social Blade mentioned that YouTube, of course, changed their monetization policy for channels in that you need 1,000 subscribers and your videos have needed to acquire 4,000 watch hours of viewership over the course of a year. If you don't meet that threshold, you cannot monetize on the YouTube platform, and that includes people that are part of an MCN. So if you were part of an MCN but under that monetization threshold, YouTube has demonetized you, but also removed you from that MCN. So that has really culled the numbers significantly on a number of these multi-channel networks. And I think this did actually help to some degree because many of those networks were exploiting those small creators. But another thing that Social Blade posted up here is the fact that YouTube has taken it a step further, and they've actually asked these networks or required these networks to further trim their numbers down. So there were a few people in some private message boards that I'm following that got cut loose by their networks unexpectedly this week, and this is an ongoing thing happening right now. And apparently the confidentiality rules that YouTube puts in place for these networks means that most of them can't talk about it. So there hasn't been a lot of press about this, but I'm seeing this happening, and I think this is going to be a good thing in the end. And why do I think that? Well, let's look at the model that I think has been the MCN model for a long period of time, which is the pyramid model, in that those little creators at the bottom here fund those at the top. So many of these networks, when they approach you, say, hey, we're going to do all this great stuff for you. Look at all these great YouTubers we have here that we've helped grow and yada, yada, yada. Well, the reality is that the reason why those top YouTubers are getting so much help and support is that these networks have been draining money out of all the people at the bottom. And what do I mean by draining money? Well, typically, and I have yet to see an MCN that doesn't work in this way, MCNs take ad revenue that they themselves have not earned. So some MCNs actually sell their own advertising and will give you a share of that, which I think is fine. But they also go after your AdSense revenue, your YouTube revenue. They take a percentage of. Some I've been offered to take 10%. Some have offered to take 50% of that revenue. No matter what, every MCN that's approached me wants a portion of the revenue that they've had no part in earning, which I don't understand why they feel they have a right to that money. But nonetheless, that is a part of every single one of these MCN contracts. So everybody in this blue area here is getting a portion of their revenue siphoned away and given to those at the top, essentially, as well as the company itself to keep operating. In some cases, the recruiters who come after you for these MCN deals also get a cut of that money, too. The reality is the money's not going back to your channel, it's going elsewhere. And they make it out to be that you're going to be this great creator that's going to be well supported by the network. What they also do is lock creators into restrictive contracts with the promises of additional revenues. But those promises are never in the contract. All the things that you have to do are in that contract clear as day, but the things that they're going to do for you never make it into the contract, oddly enough. But what they do is they go after a lot of young kids, maybe under 18, who get their parents to sign something, and that's it. They're in, and no lawyer has ever looked at this stuff. Now, I have shared some of these contracts with lawyer friends of mine to see what they thought about them, and they were horrified that people would sign this kind of stuff. So if you ever get one of these contracts and are thinking about signing up with an MCN, have a lawyer look at it first. And I'll just show you some of the things that stuck out to me over the years as I've been getting these contracts in. So here's one where they say, hey, you're going to make 90% of your revenue, so I only have to pay them 10% of the YouTube ad revenue share, right? Well, not really, because there's a word here that we need to point at: net. If this said gross, it would be 90% of the money that YouTube reports they sent to the MCN that my channel generated. But when we talk about net, that's a whole different story. So what does net mean? Well, net means net of expenses. And here's where this gets defined. In other words, they can arbitrarily decide that there's some administrative fees or some other things that have to take place for them to get that money to you. They're just going to take it off the top. So 10% could be 30%, could even be 50%, because it's based on the net revenue after they calculate all their expenses out. And what's funny is that the first line here showed up in kind of the summary page of the contract, but the actual definition of what net means appears a lot later in the fine print. So this is, again, why you want to have a lawyer look at this stuff, because this is where they get you, and they lock you in for a period of time and make it very difficult to get out. Here's a great example of a lock-in agreement that I got sent that was probably the most insulting offer I've ever seen in my life. So they said to me that this agreement will begin on the effective date, and it may be terminated at any time, as they mentioned, right? Anytime, so long as I provide them 60 months of prior written notice. In other words, I need to tell them today for a contract that I wish to get out of, but I have to wait 5 years for the ability to actually leave it. Isn't this ridiculous? And they wanted half of my revenue. Now, along with these restrictive contracts, they also have these recruiters who really work you. They really want to make you feel like you're the best thing ever. You're an up-and-comer. We need to get you on board immediately. This guy was telling me that he spoke with his CEO and that he's super excited to have me into his network. And I can only, keep this offer on the table until Wednesday, but we're going to get you a $2,200 signing bonus. And meanwhile, I've said to this guy over and over again, no, not interested. No, not interested. Kept sending stuff to me, trying to get me to change my mind until he thought maybe this $2,200 is going to make it work. Then, of course, you look at the fine print on how does the $2,200 get distributed? Well, in this instance, they were going to offer me $2,200 as a signing bonus, but these cheapskates couldn't pay it up front. So what they did is they offered $550 within the first 30 days. I don't even get it when I signed the contract. I got to wait 30 days for that. And then after another period of time passes, I think this was the second payment comes 30 days following the 3rd month anniversary. Then they pay a little bit more as this thing goes on. But it looks like you don't get the full $2,200 until the 9th month of the agreement. And then they even had some clause in there that said I'd have to wait until they recoup the $2,200 before they'd even let me out of the contract, even after the 5-year thing wore off. Just absolutely ridiculous and restrictive, and not a word about what they were going to do for me in that contract that I could hold them to. So again, if there is not a word in that contract about what they're going to do for you, they're not going to do anything for you because they're not obligated to do it. And I would suggest, if you really think you have to join an MCN, have a lawyer look at everything first before you sign up, because likely you'll be put into a very restrictive contract that extracts money from you and gives you back nothing in return. I am grateful that YouTube is starting to crack down on this practice. They're getting rid of these MCNs that have had tens of thousands of members who have been just getting revenue extracted year after year with no way out. This is hopefully a step in the right direction for those folks. And trust me when I say this, you do not need an MCN to be successful on this platform. Produce great content and don't quit, and you'll be in a much better place than paying them some money and being locked into something that you can never get out of again.
This channel is brought to you by the Lon.TV supporters, including gold-level supporters of the Black Eyed and Blues Music Hour podcast: Chris Allegretta, Gerard Newberg, and Kalyan Kumar. If you want to help the channel, you can by contributing as little as $1 a month. Head over to Lon.TV/support to learn more. And don't forget to subscribe. Visit Lon.TV/s.